All right, so thank you very much, everybody, for joining me today. My name is Marceau, and today I'm going to present a little bit of like a story about myself and what I've done at my current company, and basically talk to you about marketing metrics and how to get them in one place in your BI tool. My name is Marceau. As I said, I've been in marketing operations. At the time, it was even called marketing tailored technologies. 10 years ago, I didn't even know there was something like marketing operation, but I've been working with marketing teams for the past 10 years, working on their operational and system across different companies, bigger and small. So today we're going to start talking about marketing reporting and marketing operations, how the two are really important together. We're then going to talk about a little bit of a story about how we went from zero trust in data to some trust, not fully trusted, but getting there. And I'm going to then after talk about how to take it to the next level. And we're going to talk about how to make the framework of people, processes, and technologies work well if you have any project that type. And finally, we're going to end up with a Q&A. The goal of this presentation is really to let you know how we did it at my current company. If you can get some insights and a framework to do it on your side, if you can learn from our mistakes, that'll be awesome. If you just get one slide, one small takeaway, I think it will be worth your time and hopefully you will. So let's go straight to it. Marketing reporting and marketing operations. As I was building that presentation, I always wanted to look into a little bit more what people think in the marketing operation space of data, the analytical side of marketing in terms of marketing operation. Obviously, we are the geeky one on the marketing side. We are the analytical one. We always make sure everything works together, and data is part of it. So sometimes a little bit organically, we get the responsibility of insights, of BI, of analytics in the marketing department. That being said, it's still something that marketing operations should at least be interested in or even own completely. I thought this pretty interesting framework from the Chief Martech website, where you can see there's different type of marketing operations specialists, marketing technologists. And today we're going to focus really on that modular side of the marketing operation. And even if it's not your main focus on your current role, even if you have many other things you work on, such as optimizing and testing marketing campaigns, working on the systems, the other tools, the marketing automation, I think it might come handy at a time in your next job or maybe in your next responsibility. Why does it matter? As you become a little bit more mature in your marketing operations, you're going to see you want to maybe take it to the next level and move to a more strategical role. And the best way to become strategic is also to provide insights and not just running the day-to-day operations or making sure everything is working smoothly. And focusing on the data helps you do that, helps you kind of bringing insights to the leadership, helping them make bigger decisions, and making them see you as someone who can bring value to the business. All right, so now it's story time. And let's talk about my own story at Lightspeed. So Lightspeed, when I joined in 2017, was a pre-IPO startup. We were spending a lot of money on user acquisition. You know, the kind of growth at all cost mantra. We were not quite there, but close to it. And we were spending that money. We obviously didn't declare bankruptcy, and we ended up doing one of the most successful IPO in the decade in Canada. Still, at the time, everybody was kind of confused about what is the return on investment for marketing efforts. Nobody was owning marketing operations or any of the reporting, and nobody trusted that at the time. So a lot of questions were thrown around, like, are marketing efforts worth it? Like, if so, which ones? Why are when we align with sales numbers? And I think a lot of you can relate to these questions. But also where to look? Should we look into Salesforce or should we look into our marketing ad platforms? And so I arrived and I was asked that to fix marketing return on investment. I was like, for sure, let me help you and tell me more. And it was a huge mess. Some marketing teams, such as the content team, the brand team, were looking at Google Analytics reports for organic content. Some marketing acquisition team were looking at Google Ads, Google Ads reports, or were looking at their own custom build report in Data Studio. So a lot of reports on a lot of different platforms were used by different teams. And I was creating a lot of confusion for everybody. And so there was not just a misalignment between marketing teams by themselves, but also a misalignment between the marketing team overall and the sales teams. A lot of people in the marketing, like I said, were looking at Google Ads reports, we're looking at Google Analytics, and all of those marketing specific tools, whereas like the gold standard at Lightspeed at the time was Salesforce. And all that mattered was that numbers from Salesforce, those sales, where they come from, how marketing did support sales to hit targets. And so that big clash between the two was making discussions sometimes difficult to analyze the performance of marketing. What's great with ad platform is that they provide a lot of visibility. You can do your own reports, but at the same time, you're kind of being in a black box where you don't really understand what makes sense and why they bring you that marketing attribution, for example. AdWords and other platforms are great, but in terms of attribution, there's a lot of proprietary input, and they focus mostly on top of the funnel, focus on form field on the website. Attribution was therefore owned by AdWords and not by our own team. So for me at the time, I was still like a little bit more junior. I was like, seems to be a straight solution. Let's get first attribution right within Salesforce to align with sales. Let's get the cost and structure right in our ad platforms to make sure we can report and align with the Salesforce reporting. Extract the two together, stitch it together, and then we will be able easily to report on the ROI and make sure we can improve marketing efforts. So I started with getting attribution right. There's a lot of things to understand at the time about attribution. It was something new to me. There's a lot of vendors there, and at the time, it was really something. It was really the hot new thing. So I looked into a lot of tools, and what I realized is there's not really a right or wrong model. You need to choose what makes sense for your organization, and depending on what makes sense, you can choose also your tools. Here you can see an example of W-shaped attribution model from Visible. At Lightspeed, for example, we are very focused on acquisition of new leads. And as soon as the lead is entering our CRM, we don't really do much marketing effort after that. So the focus was probably on a model that makes more sense top of the funnel in order to see the visibility of marketing there. At the same time, I worked with different marketing teams to structure our ad platforms in the right way. You all probably are aware of UTM's parameters in your links. Making sure we're able to get that structure with the acquisition team was really helpful, especially when you're talking about big campaigns across different ad platforms. There was like the marketing acquisition team that was using Google Ads to do their own UTM. The social media team was doing their own UTMs on their side. The partners and affiliate team was also doing their own UTMs. And big campaigns that were across those channels were very difficult to track. So making sure we have a framework that works for everybody was really helpful to standardize and consolidate that campaign structure and those UTM tagging. And so at the end, what we end up doing is extracting that data from the ad platform and extracting that data from the CRM in one place and stitching it together to make reports allowing us to see the cost of acquisition of a marketing qualified lead, of a sales qualified lead, and even a customer. That's helped us very much. But that was not finished. We were supposed to take it to the next level. All of you know that as marketing operation, we don't really like manual things. We really enjoy automating things. And so remember my process I mentioned just before. This process takes time and was very manual. We had to extract the data from the ad platform and from the CRM and stitch it together in Google Sheets or Excel. At the time, it was a little bit boring. And so I decided to take it to the next level with the modern data stack. What is the modern data stack? Well, I'm not here to debate whether the modern data stack is like the solution to all of your issues or not. There's a lot of debate online about this. But basically, what we end up doing is taking that data from Google Ads, Bing, Tune, and all of the other platforms, and from Salesforce in an ETL tool like Fivetran. Fivetran is basically a tool that allows you to to connect to those systems, extract the data, and load it in a data warehouse. And in our case, it was Snowflakes. And with all of that raw data automatically extracted and pushed to a data warehouse every day or even every hour, we were able to stitch it together in Looker via SQL. We joined it together and it looked like a little bit like this. We were able to get the data, how much we spend by country, by keyword, and by date from Google Ads. And we were able to join it to the Salesforce data with the number of MQL, SQL, and new customer by keyword and country and date as well. Being able to do that and report on this on our BI tool, which was Looker at the time, we were able to build dashboards for the acquisition team to see the performance and the cost of acquisition by each ad group and by each keyword they were focusing on. And the results were pretty great. If you look at this graph, you can see in red the number of dollars we spend on AdWords and the number of high intent qualified leads over time. And you can definitely see at the time, as we were reducing the spend inside AdWords, we were reducing the number of high intent qualified leads. As soon as we implemented that solution around December, we were able to focus on the ad group and the keyword that matters. And by doing so, we were able to reduce quite a lot of spend while maintaining a healthy amount of high intent qualified leads. Is at the end? Not even close. I spent the next 4 years in a way or in another improving this solution. I moved teams, I had more responsibility, but I still had that responsibility of improving this solution. Technological solutions on themselves are just a mean to an end. What matters is adoption and action by a real living human. And a few concrete examples I want to now discuss is make it simple, make it matter, and bring it where your customers are. So if we are starting with make it simple, at the time, as you can see before, the dashboard was a little bit complex. People were not really sure how to read it, and it was a little bit complicated to action. We really reworked all of the dashboard while keeping the same data source. We were able to make it more polished and way more faster for users to use. And as you can see here on one example, they were able to really look in one dashboard to see all of their spend, what is the impact of their spend by different ad platforms. And we wanted also to make it matter. Just having spent or cost and having MQL, SQL, close one, and new customers is not enough. Having that data in silos and being able to just look at this separately was a great start, but we wanted also to make it matter, and we build on top of those data, we build different views. One of the views we built, for example, is this across the funnel stages, where you literally can see in one data set and in one report the amount we spent, how many clicks did we get from those ads, how many visits did we get, how many count of marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads, and even new stores. So as you can see, this is coming from different platforms. You have the Google Ads spend, all other ad platforms spent, but you also have the visits from Google Analytics, and finally the Salesforce data that's bringing you the customer value and how many leads did we get. And finally, we wanted to bring it where our customers are. At Lightspeed, everybody's on Slack, like everything happened on Slack. And so having the connection with Slack was allowing us to share very easily dashboard and increase adoption by quite a lot. It makes it very easy for anyone to share, to build their own report, to share them via Slack, and to display them by Slack. So if we look back at this story, I want to talk now a bit more about the framework of people, process, and technology. And I want to talk it in that order. So marketing operations is obviously at the center of people, process, and technology. We deal with a lot of people, with a lot of team on marketing. We manage and we improve a lot of processes. And of course, we manage a lot of tools, whether it's marketing automation, marketing analytics, ad platforms, campaign optimization, etc. And marketing operation is at the center of that. But we need to start with the people. This is really what I learned from this experience. We really want to understand the issue, understand the context. Having people who are great at implementing processes or technology, but don't really understand why it matters for the marketing teams will not get you that far. We also worked a lot over the years with our marketing teams to implement a problem statement versus solution-based request. What I mean by that is instead of people coming to us and mentioning, oh, I want you to do that in this system because that, we really focused on like, what's your problem? Why do you want us to help you? Please bring us the business problem and we'll try to figure out the solution and we'll share that solution with you before implementing it. By doing so, you need to also gain understanding and trust. What that means is delivering very high quality data, making sure you deliver what people want, and making sure it has an impact on their day-to-day. Obviously, across this, you need to manage change. And I think this is the hardest thing for me and maybe for a lot of people. How do you manage change? How do you make sure people engage with your process change? How do you make sure the onboarding of new team members are going to be including your new processes? And if you do that correctly, it's going to be very easy to sell your solution because you're bringing value, you understand the issue, you understand why it doesn't work, and your solution is high quality. As soon as you started with the people, now you can focus on the processes. You need to understand the processes, and you need to align multiple teams sometimes and multiple stakeholders and create that process. What this means is sometimes a lot of back and forth, a lot of try and error, but that's okay. What I really want you to also to focus is on documenting that process. Like I said before, Lightspeed was a pre-IPO startup, high growth. Sometimes you forget about the documentation. You just want to testing and break things. But at the end, you will see like documenting that process, making sure everybody is able to see that documentation is going to be really worth your while. You also want to standardize the data. As marketing operation people, we're really the one that make sure like the data is flowing very well from the website, the marketing automation, the CRM, and making sure that everything goes smoothly over there. You want to standardize this to make it way easier for doing your report at the end. And finally, you want to make sure the adoption of the process is there. It's easy to build a process, to document it, and just to say like, this is a perfect process that's going to solve everything. If nobody is following up and is following it, it's not going to work. So making sure you have that adoption. And one way to do it is making sure people understand what's in it for them. How do that process make their life easier in the long run? And finally, you can focus on the technology. That comes last from what I learned, and it matters less. I talked about a lot of solutions, whether it's Visible for attribution, Google Analytics for marketing analytics, Fivetran for extract, transform, and load solution, Snowflakes for data warehouse, Looker for BI tool, but that doesn't really matter. There's many vendors over there, and at the end, what really matters is what you do with those tools, because they're all similar and most of them can do the same thing. But you need to focus on implementing it correctly, making sure you work with your IT team, your IS team, your security team to make sure everything is up and running regarding security. And you need to make sure you have the ownership and governance very well defined, because it's easy to implement a tool and just let it grow organically inside the company. If you don't have like any governance and clear ownership of who owns what in that tool, it's going to become a mess quite easily. And lastly, I would say like scaling and anticipating the growth, especially in a pre-IPO startup, was something that was very important for us. We implemented some solution that was working very well with one CRM and one website. When we went on the acquisition spree and bought 12 companies in 2 years, I was not working at all. And we had to kind of rethink everything from scratch. Even if some things are not easy to anticipate, you still want to make sure you plan for the future in a specific way, and you want to make sure you're able to scale that solution to 10x or 100x if needed. All right, so if we go back to the output of this presentation, there was a few goals. First, hear about how we moved our marketing reporting to the next level at Lightspeed, get some insight and a framework to potentially do it on your side, and hopefully maybe learn a thing or two from our mistakes. I hope you get one small or big takeaway from this presentation. I was really, really happy to share this with you today. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any comments, please feel free to drop them in the comment section. Other than that, thank you very much again, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you, everybody. I hope everybody can hear me well. And I hope everybody understand the presentation, even with the pretty heavy accent. So if you have any question, again, feel free to put it in the comments. I'm not seeing question yet, so I will let people a couple of minutes. I see that Tak is here, so hey, Tak. Montreal is in the place. Awesome. I also believe like everybody's going to have access to the presentation, to the slides later on. So I think that's going to be helpful also if I went through them a little bit faster than the 35 or 40 minutes planned. But if you had your, so Catherine is asking if you had your top 3 reports that were helpful to your team business, what were they? I would say reporting on how much does it cost to acquire a sales qualified lead was probably the most helpful one, by marketing channel, by campaign, specifically because usually our full sales cycle is quite long. So waiting for having that feedback loop for like how much it costs to acquire a customer is obviously more accurate, but it takes a month, 2 months, 3 months to have a good understanding. And when you have to wait a little bit time to have the full sales cycle done, it's harder to compare week over week or month over month. In our situation, SQL, so sales qualified leads were always qualified in a day or two. So after a day or two, the report of cost of an SQL for sales was very easy to report, and it was very easy to report on a weekly, week over week, month over month, and therefore was able to be acted on very quickly by our marketing acquisition team, where they could adjust spend on AdWords, on Facebook, etc. So that was one of the biggest one. Obviously, the one where we were able to also look at for each channel or for each campaign, even going in depth where like by SQL, by keyword, really understanding which keyword are working and whatnot was really helpful for the acquisition specialist to really deep dive on which keyword is working for Google Ad or other platforms. So that would be, I think, 2 of them. And finally, maybe the funnel was quite interesting because when you can compare channels, different channels over the full funnel, where some channels, marketing channel, can maybe have a great cost of acquisition of a lead, but if you look at completely the full funnel and looking at the number of SQL or customer, it's actually much harder to close those type of leads. So when your preliminary reports are saying like, oh, this is actually very cheap to get that lead to convert on our website, at the end of the day, if you look at the full funnel, you can actually realize that some of those leads are not converting very well, and therefore, like, even if it looks good for marketing to bring those leads, for sales and for the company overall, it's not that great. I would say those are pretty much the three reports. Lexi, sure thing. I can talk about the report on Slack. It's actually not a very complex implementation. Looker out of the box is able to kind of work with different platforms via API, and so working with the IT team, we were able to kind of connect the two. At the beginning, it was pretty straightforward. We just started with a few users, and we rolled it out across the company. So everybody, as soon as you were able to share a Looker URL inside Slack bot was able to recognize it was a report, and it was kind of showing a preview of the report in a PDF, so you could actually look at that PDF report inside Slack without having to click and look at Looker reports on the website. It has some great advantage because you're directly putting the data inside Slack, which is great. It's also allowing people to just look at this PDF instead of going to the dashboard. And I don't know if anybody knows how Looker works. Looker is connected to your data warehouse, so every time someone is doing a report, it's costing money because it's running on your data warehouse. So having that buffer with the PDF generated as the time someone is sharing the link was also allowing us to reduce the cost there. But if we go back to the governance part of my presentation, one thing interesting is like this could allow to bypass some restriction where someone who had access to a report where someone else didn't have access to that report. If it was shared by Slack was generating PDFs as well. So we had to kind of implement some best practices to make sure like you can only share reports that are okay to share with the company. So yeah, it had some unexpected consequences, but overall it's been a great help to engage users using more and more Looker. Tak, you're talking about how did you handle change management across the organization to prepare for the new processes? That's a good question. I would say like at the time, I was a little bit maybe less familiar than now about like how to manage change and whatnot. I think specifically for marketing operation teams, as we are close to the business, it makes it easier to be really aligned with what the business needs and what are the business context. And if I look at over the next 5 years where I worked in other teams which were a little bit more outside of marketing and still supporting marketing systems, having that proximity really helped with change management at least, because you're actually answering business needs, you understand their reality, you understand the pain points, and you're able to figure out solutions. That really brings value. And I think like one of the biggest thing to have the change management start as like, is my solution bringing value, and is that value communicated clearly to the stakeholders? People need to understand why they do a change. And I think like if sometimes when you are a little bit more technical, you're just focusing on the solution and you're not focusing on communicating that solution, communicating that value you're bringing with that solution, you might miss some people who are like going to be confused about like not seeing the value of that change. And this is where like change management make it a little bit harder, because people don't understand why we are doing things. So I think like communicating early and often why we are doing things and why it's bringing value to the business and how it can improve people's day-to-day is very important. I hope it answers the questions. I'm happy. I didn't see questions during the presentation, and now like I have a few questions. Awesome. Catherine is asking, how were you connecting Google Ads, Bing Ads to the warehouse? Is there a direct API connection, or were you doing that via Visible? Great questions. So we use a tool like Fivetran, which is a extract, transform, and load ETL tool. And basically, it has hundreds of connectors to hundreds of different ad platform or systems, and it's making it very, very easy without any dev work to ingest all the data, and you can configure like on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. I think you can even go to up to 5 minutes basis, where it's basically just doing all the work of taking the data, ingesting it in your data warehouse, and even doing some transformation to it. some connectors, like if you're using BigQuery instead of Snowflake as a data warehouse, you can directly connect Google Ads to Google BigQuery, for example. So you don't even need to go through a third-party vendor. Same with Google Analytics. If you have Google Analytics 360, you can connect it directly to BigQuery, and you don't need any external vendor. And usually what it brings is a lot of data. If you look at Google Ads, there's like 200 tables with millions of rows for each table. So you have a lot of data, raw data, inside your data warehouse. And then you need to make sense of that data. And this is where via SQL, you're able to transform the data to build some tables that are easy to understand for the business. So, and I know, for example, Visible also have that kind of connection with um, with uh, Google Ads platform and whatnot. So you can bring that data to Visible, but I think it stay in the Visible platforms, and so you're not completely able to kind of do whatever you want with that data. So that's really where this solution we decided was giving us the most freedom. It's basically we were kind of owning the data, and if we were to close our Google Ad account for our Google Analytics 360 account tomorrow, we would still own all of that data in the data warehouse, and this is managed by us, so no vendor is needed there. Bianca is asking, we use Stitch as our data warehouse to build dashboard. Any tip on how to test different Marketo attributes that can be captured in Stitch? So that's a good question. Unfortunately, we don't use Marketo in at Lightspeed. We use something else. So I'm not super familiar with Marketo, even though I worked in the past with it. But I've never actually ingested Marketo data in the past, so I can't really answer that. So I would say I know Stitch. I don't know if the documentation would allow you to look into what you can do and what you can capture. But I know some ETL tools such as Stitch or Fashion, they sometimes don't allow you to bring the full data to your data warehouse because they're using pre-built reports, and sometimes you're a little bit limited on those reports. And so sometimes you actually have to go like the developer route and build your own connection if needed. But it really depends on what's Stitch capacities and capabilities here. So sorry, Bianca, I can't answer your question, but yeah. I think we don't have any more questions for now. I will let, if you have follow-up questions also based on my answer, feel free to comment. I'm happy to have a discussion. Thank you for your question, Bianca. All right. I think I went through all the questions. I'll let one more minute go. Other than that, you might have a little bit more time today to manage urgency at work or to do whatever you want. Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate the feedback. All right. Awesome. Thank you. I'm happy. And if you have more questions, if you want to go more in depth in some part of that presentation, happy to. I think you have my LinkedIn anyway. It's Marceau Boulenger in English. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to discuss some part more in depth, get on a Zoom and share some information, have some debate on how to do that better and whatnot. Super happy to do that. I have one more question. How long did it take to implement this solution? I would say like putting in place the implementation, the multi-touch attribution via Visible was like a 6 months project at the time. I just started Lightspeed, and that's kind of where I started at Lightspeed, really making sure we have that attribution ready. And before that, there was no data warehouse, no BI tool, so everything was in Excel or Google Sheets. So it was a little bit more time to put it in place inside the data warehouse and the BI tool. And then after that, improving, like I said, like over the past 4 years, I also like upgrade that solution in ways or others. And other people now are kind of taking over that solution and improving it on a quarterly basis. But I would say like the first big push was 6 months to get attribution, and then putting in a data warehouse was another 6 months, I would say. But definitely that's because the company was not at a place where they had anything regarding attribution. They didn't have anything regarding BI and data warehouse. So that was also like the period it took for the company to kind of roll out those solutions. So I would say if you have already some data warehouse in place, some BI tool in place, and some attribution, ingesting the data from the different platforms, doing the reporting and whatnot could be like much faster. So that being answered, thank you everybody for your question. I think we went over it. And again, feel free to add me or to keep the conversation going if you have more questions. Thank you everybody for your attention today. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon.